What is crawl space encapsulation, and why should somebody who has a crawl space consider encapsulating their crawl space?
Well, the encapsulation is not only on the grounds, but it actually goes up the walls on the pillars. So you're actually encapsulating pretty much the whole thing, so moisture cannot get into it. Sometimes though, I'll have to end up putting in a sump pump that actually end up pumping up water if it's getting water in there also. So you want to make sure the crawl space is as dry as possible. And if you do encapsulate it, you want to make sure you actually put a dehumidifier in there, which will keep the moisture levels down.
When you encapsulate a crawl space, what is it encapsulated with? How does that work?
Usually, in the encapsulation, you want to use at least a 10 mil.
Okay.
Sometimes you can end up using a 20 mil. That's the thickness of the vapor barrier. The industry standard would be about a 10 mil. Obviously, you go up to 20 mil, it's going to double the price on it.
And then once you encapsulate everything, then you're keeping the moisture from coming up through the ground and going into the house. But you're also probably keeping the creepy critters that you and I talked about at the beginning of the conversation from getting into the crawl space unless they come in through the door. So what would be other benefits of encapsulating a crawl space? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I've never owned a home with a crawl space, but if I did own a home with a crawl space, I would get that 100% encapsulated. Like as before I moved in, I would have all of that done.
Well, encapsulation actually helps with your health issues even, and it also help with like musty smell, so you don't get that musty smell you were talking about.
Right.
Obviously, you won't get mold because it's keeping the moisture level down. Because like I said, if you end up putting a dehumidifier in there, it's going to keep it below 55% humidity in that crawl space. And that's what your goal is, to keep it below 55% so it doesn't get mold or a musty smell.
How do you affix the plastic to the ground? How do you affix it to the columns? How do you affix it to the walls? What keeps it there?
Either nails, we use nails, staples, we end up using a lot of tape, double-sided tape, glue. There's a lot of different ways depending on how it needs to be put on there.
If somebody had allergies and was specifically offended by the odor of a crawl space, would you do anything differently in that case to sort of further encapsulate things than you would just with a normal encapsulation?
You can put where it's vented to the outside. I mean, a lot of times what that will do is help the gases also from related to the soil, because obviously the soil, it's got gases that come up, which could be radon, it could be all kinds of different things. But even venting it, that would actually help too. And the thing of it is, every crawl space is different, so you got to see what you actually have. I mean, like I said, sometimes you got to put a sump pump in there. Sometimes you got to do drainage around there. So there's. And we don't do that part.
Okay.
Obviously, a foundation person would have to end up doing that.
How much would it cost to do encapsulation for an average crawl space? I'm thinking an average crawl space is 11 or 1,200 square feet. I don't know if I'm even close to being right.
Well, the average is usually around 15 to 2,000 square feet.
Okay.
And the average cost is anywhere from $3 to $7 per square foot, depending on what you have to do.
Okay.
So say a 1,500 square foot would be about $4,500 or so.
On the low.
On the low side, and about $10,000 on the high side.
Got it.
So it gives you an average cost, probably about $7,500. And that includes everything. That includes the encapsulation. That includes, putting a dehumidifier in there and making sure, the humidity level is below 55%.
If somebody wanted to have something like this installed, how long would it take from the time they got the estimate to the time it was installed?
We can have it completed within 2 days, typically, the job. But I mean, we would need at least probably a couple days notice to order everything.